You know, it's kind of weird. Everyone loves crossovers, but when you think about it, they're pretty rare. Go into the internet and look up any random combination of things. Freaking Dragon Ball and Flintstones. If it doesn't exist, now it's going to. But yeah, there's really not as many crossovers as you'd expect. So, frick it. I'll make my own crossover with Blackjack and hookers. If Disney won't make a Gravity Falls and Pickle and Peanut crossover, I will. I'm going to try and connect every show from Cartoon Network, Disney Channel, and Nickelodeon to each other using only the shows themselves and any cameos that appear in them. That means no video games, commercials, or anything that isn't a show or movie directly connected to the shows. To limit myself a bit though, I'm limiting this to only shows directly made by the direct studios of the companies. So for example, no Total Drama or Teen Titans for Cartoon Network. Also Villainous doesn't count since that hasn't aired in America. Also, no shows that are just a series of shorts. Finally, for Disney, just so I don't have to deal with 40 years of shows, I'm going to limit it to anything made for Disney Channel or Disney XD. Oh, I should note, this is not a definitive list of every cameo from these shows. I just need one to tie them together. If a character appears in multiple things, I probably won't mention it. Also, I must stress, this is just for fun. I don't actually think these are canon. Let's finally bring that 50-page crossover to life. We all wrote it, don't yell at me, we were all 6 once. Let's start! Crossover Nexus. Okay. Yes, I do think Crossover Nexus counts because it is an official episode of OKKO, but just for fun, let's completely ignore it. I will not take this episode into account for this video. So that actually leaves the big connector to be, of all things, Uncle Grandpa. In the episode The Grampies, Uncle Grandpa gives away a ton of rewards for Best Cartoon. Everything goes to him. It's the Nick Choice Awards, but less rigged. What is important, though, is that a bunch of other characters are cameo as the audience members, including characters from Johnny Bravo, Dexter's Lab, Samurai Jack, Powerpuff Girls, Gumball, Steven Universe, Clarence, Adventure Time, Regular Show, Foster's Home, Billy Mandy, and Ben 10. One singular example already knocks off 13 shows. Heck, Uncle Grandpa is actually a spin-off of a show called Secret Mountain Fort Awesome, so that's another down. But you might be asking, why didn't talk about the other Uncle Grandpa crossover? Say Uncle from Steven Universe. The reason is simple yet complicated. In that episode, it's directly confirmed non-canon. I deeply care about the structural integrity of the Uncle Grandpa timeline, so I can't just invalidate this crucial fact. However, due to my strict adherence to Uncle Grandpa lore, I have found this deep nugget hidden deep within the forgotten episode of Uncle Grandpa. In the episode The Grampies, if you squint very hard, you will see Stevenson Court's universe from the hit TV show Steven Universe. Due to this fact, and the fact that Uncle Grandpa directly states he was in an episode of Steven Universe,
the award for Best Steven Universe episode goes to Uncle Grandpa!
Means I can cheat a bit and say that UG did in fact meet all the kids in this list, including Flapjack and Juniper Lee. It truly was a good morning. Oh, and I guess there's still like 50 other shows, so I guess we can use these as jumping off points. Billy and Mandy is probably the most helpful one. I'm sure you all know the K&D crossover episode, which easily wraps that in. But at the end of the episode, there's a giant reaper made of a bunch of kids. It's less grim than it sounds. Or more grim, but in this is a lot of shows we've already discussed. There's also Andy Johnson from Squirrel Boy, Adam Lyon from My Gym Partner as a Monkey, and Nurgle Jr. He's from Billy and Mandy, but I like him, so he gets a special mention. Oh, and the It's Everything standing cameo. Now, in the end credits, we can see some other crossovers, but I'm not going to count these. Since these are just posters, we get no indication that they're this part of the same world. You might also remember that weird 5-part Alien Takeover special, that being Satan Invaded. In the final episode focusing on Billy and Mandy, we get direct confirmation that these specials are connected, as we see 5 characters being used to power the ship. Fred Fredburger, Ed, Sus Python, Cheese, and the most important one, Chip from Camp Lazlo. Could also be Skip, I don't know. House after Billy Mandy. In the episode Herbicidal General Scar, which is from the show Yellow Con Carne, so that's actually another crossover, gets fertilizer from cow from cow and chicken, which has a direct link to I Am Weasel. So I'll knock that off too. Going back to the Grampies, surprisingly of all characters, Ben 10 also helps us a lot. He's had 2 crossover episodes. One was Generator Rex, and the other was Secret Saturdays. While Generator Rex confirms the 2 are separate universes, it's actually canon to both series, as Sock Squatch appears here first, and later on reappears in Omniverse, even if he now looks visually appealing. Secret Saturdays not only has the episode TGIS, but in Secret Saturdays, they directly mention Galvin Prime, the world Athemus and the Galvins come from, and in the episode Von Rick's Apprentice, villains from Ben 10 appear on Criminal Database. So yeah, the shows just directly together. Speaking of Secret Saturdays, it's actually the way we get to link OKKO back into here, since in the final episode, Zack appears, alongside the villain from Crossover Nexus. I said the episode isn't being counted, I didn't say that didn't exist. Also in the same shot as Randall from Party Wagon, I failed Pilot from CN, which doesn't count for this video, but more importantly, Sonny Bridges from Class of 3000. If you're curious, these 2 shows only one does not include in Crossover Nexus, which is why they're here. The same episode reveals that Mr. Gar grew up in Monte Macarbe from Victor and Valentino, But let's wrap that in as well. Oh, speaking of OKKO, Red appears in the final episode of Mighty Magiswords. There's really no reason why, he's just kinda there. Also, to tie up some loose ends, the silhouettes of Wirt and Greg appear in an episode of Clarence. Heck, the talent from both shows is the exact same. Dexter makes a cameo in Time Squad. Miss Bell and Powerpuff Girls appears in Chowder. And finally, there's Space Ghost, who starred in CN, and they have connections to both Powerpuff Girls and Johnny Bravo. And sadly, that's as far as we go. That leaves 21 shows unaccounted for. Some of those I fully expected we'd never find a connection, like Transformers Animated or Annoying Orange for obvious reasons, but We Bare Bears infuriates me. There's a scene in it where the bears transform into the cast of Adventure Time, but that doesn't count. That's not actually those characters. Especially infuriating since the spin-off has direct connection to Summer Camp Island, which also isn't connected. It's worth noting that if you did include Crossover Nexus, every show would count except for Transformers Animated, Annoying Orange, Mixels, and Clone Wars for obvious reasons, and Alien from Earth since that didn't exist at the time. Okay, this one I'm super proud of. The easy start here is Lilo and Stitch series, which includes multiple crossovers with Kim Possible, American Dragon, and Proud Family. Oh, and also Recess, but that's not important for this video. We also use Kim Possible, and Recess, to tie in with Fillmore. In the episode Operation Electric Haircut, both Spinelli and Kim appear in the cafeteria. Another show that helps us tie in stuff is, of all things, Future Worm, a show I've never heard anyone talk about. But in the final episode, the main character briefly transports to the worlds of Wander Over Yonder, Gravity Falls, Pickle and Peanut, and Star Versus. Also, might as well talk about the whole Gravity Falls Amphibia Owl House connection. Amphibia is pretty objectively connected to Owl House. In the season 2 finale of Owl House, you can straight up see a picture of Anne in the news report, and it directly correlates to the story of Amphibia. So yeah, they're connected. Connecting Gravity Falls to them though is a bit more complicated. On the Amphibia side, this is obviously the kind of crossover episode where Anne meets frog versions of Stan and Seuss. These obviously aren't those characters, but Frog Seuss says there's parallel universes of them, and it's not too out of nowhere. I mean, Amphibia itself is literally an alternate dimension to Earth. So let's just say that Gravity Falls isn't in the Earth of Amphibia's universe. That's complicated. Then there's Owl House, which has vague hints that Ida has visited the town. In the comic Lost Legends, a wanted poster of Ida appears, and in the same panel, you can see in the journal a page on the Boiling Isles. But yeah, I said no non-shows or films, so this doesn't count, even if this comic is canon. Then there's a hint of Stan's ex-wife, who, according to a commentary in the Gravity Falls DVD set, robbed him 30 minutes after a marriage, then ran away, and was described as having hair like an airline stewardess, a neon pink shirt that said over 30 and very flirty, pale bingo hall skin, and one weirdly sharp tooth. Also, her name is Marilyn. Now, besides the name, that matches Ida very well, and in a later Owl House episode, it's confirmed that Ida used the name Marilyn as an alias. So, I mean, the boot fits. So we have two solid enough ways to connect a bunch of shows, but no way to connect them all. Except, there is one, but please, for the love of God, hear me out. So let's talk about the only good official crossover, House of Mouse. Now this is another show I didn't need to bring in, but it was on Disney's channel, even if it didn't originate from it, so I'll allow it. But this does three things that help us majorly. First and most obviously, it ties together all the shows based on movies. 101 Dalmatian Street, The 7D, Emperor's New School, and kind of surprisingly, Tron Uprising. As in one episode, there's light cycles. Also, since I'm allowing movies, in Wreck-It Ralph 2, we get Tangled and Big Hero 6. Thing 2, how exactly just DuckTales factor into this? Well, the easy thing is to say Donald and other characters are here, boom. The thing is though that it's established that this isn't your parents' DuckTales. These aren't the same ones from the mainstream universe. It's shown in some episodes that the original show is a different universe. And I guess that could be used as our connection, but there's a more simple explanation. Goofy. Goofy is an a-casual, omnipresent elder god who's not bound by normal laws. Welcome to a Straight to Squid YouTube channel, where our motto is we can't find a cartoon doll that we can't expose a dark secret to. In his debut episode, a genie keeps bringing in new aspects to ultra reality of the show, before they're all revealed to be fake, with one exception, Goofy. He's really there. Not only that, it's confirmed that he's the Goofy from Goof Troop, showing Max as his son, and having the same job he had in Goofy movie. So, boom, that's our connection. Oh, and the 2013 series is normal Mickey, so that's here too. But the big one, the reason I'm making such a big deal of this, we had to connect it to Lilo and Stitch, obviously. House of Mouse is a crossover of every Disney film at the time, so they're not just going to completely skip over the one that I need, and you already know where this is going. Yeah, because there was a show going on at the time, Lilo and Stitch is the only film to not be included in the show. But there's three ways to make it, two of which are bigger stretches than every single Slinky stapled together. For one, there's a flash game for House of Mouse that includes Lilo and Stitch, but I said no games. Then there's a commercial for Lilo and Stitch, where Stitch interrupts various Disney films, but I said no commercials. But there is a will, and that's Leroy and Stitch. In this film, we see all the experiments from the series trying to fight a new villain. There's two experiments that look unique though. Yeah, That's just straight up Timon and Pumbaa, two of the most frequent guests in House of Mouse. So why am I jumping through so many hoops to get this connection? Well, there's one TV original character that appears in House of Mouse, and that's Pepper Ann. And her mother, but shut up, parents don't exist. Now again, Pepper Ann is not necessary to include, but it's still it's pinned in this whole web. Let's look back at Amphibia. In the second to last episode, all is fine, normal. There's a giant salamanders attempting to destroy Earth, normal Tuesday, until BAM! Pepper Ann. We caught her. Now just like that, we've been able to have an easy connection between the old and new Disney shows. Now there's one little loose end. Phineas and Ferb. It's already known that Phineas is connected to Dan Swampy's other show, Mount Murphy's Law and Hamster and Gretel. There's several reused locations in Hamster, plus a farmer and his wife, two minor characters from Phineas, and Milo Ship had a crossover with them. But for getting it to the rest of the web, there's two extremely weak connections. For one, there was a special called Spot the Diff, where old episodes were edited to have changes via Deuce New Nader. In one change, Kim Possible randomly appears. Does that count? I don't know. The other, even weaker, yet far funnier one is this. In the spin-off Take Two with Phineas and Ferb, which is listed as a show in Disney+, so it's not making no commercial role, in one episode, they interview Regis Philbin. In an episode of Lilo and Stitch, because this freaking show is a son apparently, literally everything revolves around it, they keep building up that there's a super important person that they're gonna meet. And lo and behold, Regis. Please let me have this. I definitely want a huge support of this video to be Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. But with Phineas and Ferb added, that's where we end, with 15 shows left off. Now, World of God says Big City Greens is connected to every Disney show ever, and also Planet Sheen, but not Jimmy Neutron. But that's clearly a joke and not shown on screen. No, the plushies don't count, so I could hypothetically have these plushies as well, but it doesn't mean they exist in the real world. I say hypothetically, because Disney won't make a king plush! But yeah, that's where this side ends. And this is where the fun ends. If I was including games, this would be a breeze. But Nick barely lets any show gets more than one season, so obviously letting them cross over is out of the question. The big start is, of all things, the Loud House. In the episode Link or Swim, the characters all go to a pool, and in the elderly section, we see Grandpa Phil, Iroh, Miss Bitters, Grandpa Lou, and Miss Fowl. Now, is this canon? Almost certainly not. Most of these characters are from different time periods. Hey, I'm counting it. It's clearly these characters. So in addition to adding Loud House, Hey Arnold, Avatar, Vader Zim, Rugrats, and Jimmy Neutron right off the bat, it obviously means other spin-offs count too. Let's jump off from these. Some of these are dead ends, but Rugrats has two easy connections. They had an entire movie with the Wild Thornberrys, and one episode of the Rugrats. They're almost murdered by the main cast of Audio Monsters. We need more crossovers that focus on the main characters of beloved shows trying to murder babies. Jimmy Neutron also helps us a lot. Most obviously, the Jimmy Neutron Power Hours. 3 whole movies crossing over it and Freya appearance. Oh, and Planet Sheen is also obviously a spin-off of it. And the first episode of that, Sheen remembers back when he was on a farm, and Otis and Pig appear? So, like, does that count? If that doesn't, the planet from the show appears in the final episode of Barnyard. Because I'm telling you guys, these shows are just direct sequels to each other. I don't think that should count, but in an episode of Teenage Robot, there's this character, who the entire internet says is Brobot, but like, it barely looks like him? It's literally only got one eye, which like, thanks for taking my advice, but how? Forget though, if people say it's him, it's him. Oh, and since I brought up Freya Parents, there's a short that tie together all a bunch of shows. But that's not good enough for you. If you want Danny Phantom tie-in, Dash appears in one episode. If you want a Button tie-in, they had a crossover. And if you want a Tough Puppy crossover, frick you, this Nick has his head. But of course, there's SpongeBob. We gotta be able to tie Nick's biggest show in here, right? Well, Nick's notoriously protected for the boy. Heck, they hyped up getting his first big crossover this year, and it's with itself. Also, Patchy was in Big Time Rush at one time. There's really nothing tying SpongeBob to the rest of Nick. I'm connected to Gurren Lagann, but not Nickelodeon. Well, there's one kind of weak connection. In episode Jimmy Neutron, Jimmy and friends are swimming, and in the background, there's a pineapple. So I guess SpongeBob is somewhere underneath the Jimmy Neutron verse? Sure. And sadly, that's where we stop. Again, if comics, commercials, and games counted, this would be easy. But they don't. So that leaves a whopping 36 shows unaccounted for. I blame a lot of this on Nick nowadays buying old properties instead of making new ones. Just saying, if games counted, Splatoon would tie together SpongeBob, Transformers, and TMNT. So, that should be where it ends. There's a dumb part of my brain that keeps nagging at me. Can we tie together all the networks and shows into one? Well, I dug deep, but results were mixed. Arguably the most iconic cross-company reference was from Camp Lazlo. We were introduced to the original Scoutmaster. He's never named, but he's a shaved cow that prefers to be called Steer, and is voiced by Tom Kenny. It's very clear that he's supposed to be Heifer from Rocket Mountain Life, with them never saying his name being their waiver on copyright. If you're curious, both of these shows are made by the same guy. However, Rocco doesn't connect to the rest of Nickelodeon, leaving this to be meaningless. In fact, I'll just say right now, Nick doesn't connect at all. Sad, but kind of expected, considering how little it would connect to its own network. For Disney and CN though, power of same creator struck again. At the start of the final episode of Wander Over Yonder, every last member of the galaxy is together on one planet, including, BOOM! Blue from Foster's Home. I'm sure there's a ton of other Fosters and Powerpuff Girls references in this show, but all we need is one. And just like that, it's settled. Pizza Steve can totally meet Dr. Doofenshmirtz. I have finally found inner peace. And there you go. That's every show from Nickelodeon, Disney, and Cartoon Network that I can tie in together. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. And wait a minute! I appeared in a video on Cyanized's YouTube channel, Playing Among Us. Also in that video was a channel named Rayo. Rayo appeared in the podcast Good Morning Source Gaming, who also had another episode with Scott the Woz, who appeared in a video with James Rolfe, who was in another video with JonTron, who was with Starcade, which is officially supported by Disney and Star Wars, which had a crossover with Phineas and Ferb. Oh my god. I'm Ken, Phineas and Ferb.
Don't worry, bro. None of this is canon. But this is...